From the burning mesas of the Arizona desert to the slut machine-clad boardwalks of New Jersey, it's the Imaginarium with Scott and Todd. I'm Scott Colbert.
And I'm the horror nerd, Todd Staruch.
And this week, we have a special guest.
Very special.
Not special ed, just special.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, wait till I start talking.
Why don't you introduce her, Todd?
I will. So I am very excited for our guest this week. Someone I met a couple of years ago at a convention that we shall remain nameless. About the only good thing that came out of it is I made a lot of good friends, including our guest today. We have Playboy Playmate, Miss September 1990, Miss Kerri Kendall. Welcome aboard, Kerri.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Now, Scott, I have been informed that we have some rules. First of all, do not use the term Playboy model. Kerri is a playmate. There's a very big distinction there.
I did. I gave him the smackdown in the messages.
Here is. I totally got smackdown, which was awesome because I usually have to pay extra for that kind of action.
And I usually charge.
Yes. And not only that, do not suggest that Kerri was a Playboy bunny. Whatever you do, don't say that.
No, that one doesn't bother me as much as the last one. The last one bothers me the most.
Well, see, now, I hadn't even thought about referring to her as a Playboy bunny until you mentioned it. Now I'm going to spend the next hour or so trying not to say that.
No, I think bunny is cute, but actually the bunnies were the cocktail waitresses at the Playboy clubs. I think some of the playmates they might be referred to as bunnies now because they actually wear the outfits, but I never got one, so I'm resentful and bitter. Not really, but no, but the one that I think the one that we were talking about in private message was the one that bothers me is the former playmate. That I don't know why everyone says that, and that one always kind of just like grates at me because I'm not a former playmate. There will never be another September 1990. I will always be a playmate. It's a part of history, and I'm proud of it. So,
it's funny when you said that. It never occurred to me to even say former playmate. Like but you know what? I guess I can understand it. I'm not certain they mean any harm, but for me, like, yeah, it's like once a playmate, always a playmate.
Right. That's how I see it too. Otherwise, there would only be one at a time, I guess. Like there's only one playmate. There'd be Miss March right now, 2016, and that's it.
So, by the way, how do you, what are your thoughts on the fact that Playboy, as we knew it, is sort of going away? There will be no more centerfolds, no nudity, really. Is that nostalgic for you? Is it a pain point for you? How do you feel about that?
At this point, last year was my 25th anniversary of being a playmate. And the magazine has changed so much since then anyway that I don't have strong feelings either way about it because it's kind of been circling the drain for years. They've had people come in. I mean, I was married to the former senior photo editor for the magazine for years, and they had people coming in and trying to revamp the whole thing many times, and they would try to make it look like FHM, and even that was ruining, I think, the vibe of the magazine. But you can't fault them for trying to do whatever it is that's going to create more sales. But at the same time, I don't have a dog in this fight. I really don't. I'm nostalgic for vintage Playboys anyway. I'm nostalgic for the vintage playmates. Back in my day, they didn't really care to have girls with breast implants. And if you had ever been nude anywhere else, there wasn't internet because I'm old as hell, but there was no internet back then. There was no Photoshop. They used lighting to make us look perfect. And if they'd found out that you'd been a stripper, they wouldn't accept you as a playmate. Now that's kind of impossible. You can't find a girl over 18 who hasn't shown her boobs on the internet. So I don't know. It's a different vibe. It's a different magazine. I don't know. I don't really care. I hate to say that I don't care, but I don't, you know?
Well, that's fair. What I find very interesting is so many people like on social media are up in arms about it, like it's some big tragedy. And my thing was, well, if you cared so much, right, you would have been buying it all along, and they wouldn't be in trouble. So people only seem to care about something when it's about to disappear. No one cares about that decrepit movie theater until some developer wants to knock it down, and then it's like, oh, that's outrageous.
Right. No, I completely agree. But I'll tell you something. I've wanted to be a playmate my whole life since I was a little kid. And I remember when I was like 14 years old, the guy that owned the liquor store, he knew that was my thing. I was going to do this when I became of age. And he told me.
Wait. What? How did the guy at the liquor store know this?
Because it was a neighborhood thing and all the kids kind of hung out there. Remember back in the day when you'd all hang out by the store, you're teenagers, and you'd hang out and you knew the guy that owned this and you knew the guy that owned that.
Oh, God. Now I know I'm a nerd because for me it was a comic book store and not a liquor store, but okay.
It was the 7-Eleven for me.
Right. It was right next. That's exactly it. It was right next to the 7-Eleven. We used to hang out in back of both of them. But he told me back then, Playboy might not even be around by the time you're of age. Because he said it was the magazine wasn't doing well then. I don't know how he knew that, but I was like, shut your mouth. But I know it had been struggling for many years. So who knows? I guess they're doing what they have to do.
Well, Playboy, this is coming from a gay man's perspective. So, that may be tainted a little bit. It seems to me that Playboy, it certainly had the pinups and the centerfolds and the nude women. It wasn't necessarily really sexual the way that, say, Hustler was sexual or Screw was sexual. And if you got a story Playboy, or if you got an interview in Playboy, that was a big thing. So I think Playboy was elevated above the others, and they just really couldn't compete because they weren't doing what everybody else was doing. They had standards and they stuck to them.
I don't have standards, so I really but you're right. The big joke always was, oh, I read Playboy for the articles, but they actually did have good articles, and they had a great cartoonist, and they had a great joke page, and it really was it was the sophisticated men's magazine. There's no denying that, at least for me.
Well, yeah, and for a long time it was the only magazine.
Well, I agree completely. There's a sense of class to the vintage Playboys. I mean, the Playboy magazine, you always have this image of a man in his study with the glass of scotch and with the bookcase behind him.
So Kerri, how did you know, like, why from an early age was it a thing that you wanted to be a playmate?
I think it's just being a child of the 70s. Playboy was just something, because it was so different than those, I believe, the other men's magazines. It was something that people just had, in that you had the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Time magazine, the National Geographic, and some Playboys. I mean, that's just, my dad had them in the house. It's not like I wasn't like looking through them all the time or anything, but I just remember it being so iconic. And the women, I knew they were so beautiful. And someone told me years later, she was cutting my hair. She said, I always knew you were going to become a playmate, because this friend of ours would always say to you, you're going to grow up to be just as beautiful as one of those playmates someday. So I guess a seed was planted in my little pea brain, and I wanted to grow up and be a beautiful playmate. The photographer who took my test shots for Playboy, he took the test shots the day after my 18th birthday. But before I turned 18, he drove me up to LA to meet Ken Marcus. Are you familiar with Ken Marcus?
I know who that is.
Ken Marcus was a Playboy photographer, a very excellent photographer, but then he left Playboy and he went to Penthouse. So he was at Penthouse when this photographer brought me up to introduce me. And I was in his studio and he was trying to talk me into posing for Penthouse instead. And I was saying, no, I really want to be a Playboy Playmate. That's what I want to do. And he said to me, he said, well, if you wanted to be a stewardess and you interviewed for American Airlines and they didn't hire you, would you just give up your dream of being a stewardess or would you go on down to Delta? And I looked at him and I said, well, it's not really my dream to be naked in a magazine. I just really want to be a Playboy Playmate. And he didn't like that very much. So it kind of pissed him off.
Interesting. That is actually a little bit fascinating to me. That is, and I think that's very cool what you just said. It wasn't your goal to just be naked in a magazine, it was specifically to be a playmate. How many signed photos of you does it take before it becomes really creepy?
I don't care. I don't judge because I'm selling them. So it's not creepy to me at all. You have so few. No, it takes about 200. So if you're trying to reach creepy level, keep buying them.
Are you ever surprised at the level of interest that there still is? That you go to conventions and people buy your photos, people buy them, through auction, through the internet. And don't take that the wrong way. I mean, you're still gorgeous. You're very nice. You're very engaging with the fans. So there's no reason why anyone wouldn't want to. But I'm just curious, are you ever surprised by the level of interest, 25 years later?
Yes, absolutely. And I remind myself of that on days when, if sometimes I'm a human, and sometimes you can be annoyed by the pestering of fans, or I shouldn't say you, I'm speaking for myself. I can get annoyed and feel pestered by fans. And then I have to stop myself and go, Kerri, this is 25 years later, and these people still have an interest in you. Stop being such a bitch and really be grateful that people still appreciate your, well, I don't want to say legacy. That's a little bit, the people still just appreciate me and the fact that I'm a playmate and maybe I'm their favorite one. A lot of the times, I think what it is that if, especially if you're the first Playboy that someone opened, that's when you really stick in someone's head. Or a lot of times it will be military, because my issue came out right during Desert Storm. So I went to Desert Storm with a lot of soldiers. And that's really cool, So it sticks in their minds, and 25 years later, yeah, they still appreciate it, and I really appreciate the fact that they do.
Well, yeah, you never forget the first girl you ever jacked off to.
Oh my god! Oh jeez, was that from the gay guy?
That was from the gay guy. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
There's that professionalism again. Wow, I wish, Kerri, I could have seen the expression on your face just then.
I wish I could have too. I bet it was awesome. I know my mouth was open. I was like,
Because there was such a pause. That was tremendous, Scott. That, that is going, if we ever do like a retrospective show and we do like the top 10 moments on the Imaginarium, that is in the top 10.
I was just, thinking, and I'm a writer, so my mind goes in many different ways sometimes. And I was just thinking about this long line of guys, my age or a little bit younger, waiting to meet you and thinking, and thinking just that. This is the first girl I ever did that to.
Oh, I'm not upset about it, though. Please don't think that upset me. Basically, okay, I do have a mouth like a truck driver, and I do pose naked in magazines, but I'm not a big fan of overtly sexual talk. Like you'll notice, I won't engage in that on my Facebook page, or if someone says something overtly sexual, I will delete it. Yeah, I'm real. I know I'm weird. I'm an enigma. I don't know. Whatever.
We made Kerri blush over the internet.
It brings up a question that I have: is do you think women are more sexualized today than they were when you posed for Playboy?
Women?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
I don't think personally they are. I think there's almost a competition to see who can be the crudest and the crassest. But I think women have always been sexual. It's almost like women want to be seen that way. I don't know. I think women have always been sexual. I think we have, on the one hand, we have more freedoms to express ourselves sexually, and that's fantastic. But at the same time, I think people just strive too hard to be crude, and that's not the same thing to me.
I couldn't agree more. We sort of had a similar discussion. We were talking about the Oscars, and I am a big fan of old Hollywood. I love the glamour of like a Rita Hayworth or a Marilyn Monroe because, oh my God, they were so sexy, but they were glamorous, and and I hate to use the word slutty. I don't mean it to be derogatory, but I think you know what I mean. There's a difference between sexy and slutty, It's not about, oh, look at how much I can show, like how much cleavage I can show at one time, or oops, I wore a short skirt and forgot to wear panties. Oops.
Exactly. No, it's become crass. It really has, and I do miss a lot of that, the class and glamour as well. I'm right there with you.
It's the difference between Betty Page in a seductive pose and Kim Kardashian posing naked like she did this week.
Did she this week? I didn't see it. I'm not a Kardashian hater, so I can't jump on that bandwagon. I don't understand all of the just rampant hatred for this family. I don't get it. But I think she has one of the most beautiful faces I've ever seen. And Betty Page, I mean, oh God, we worship her.
Scott, it's funny you brought up Kim Kardashian because I now see, I find it very funny that so many people claim to not care about Kim Kardashian, and yet all they do is post about her. I have no hatred for the girl, but I just simply don't care. Like, you'll never see me post anything about her because I simply don't care about her and Kanye West. Like, people claim to hate Kanye West so much, but all they do is fucking talk about him. I'm like, if you really didn't care, you just go about your day and never speak his name. If I had to hazard a guess, I would say it comes down to like people, like a person might be sitting at home and saying, I just got home from my job where I work 50 hours a week for 40 grand a year. I'm toiling away to feed my children. These people really do nothing. They're just famous for being famous.
I disagree with that. I disagree. They work constantly. They have, if you actually do sit down and watch the show, those people are always working. Maybe the way that they got to their money was because of an opportunity that most of us wouldn't have. So like, here's what everyone says. Oh, she got famous for a sex tape. Okay, if someone released a sex tape of me, why wouldn't I parlay that into a multi-million-dollar business? I mean, who wouldn't?
But you bring up a good point, about such visceral hatred for Kim Kardashian, and I think a lot of that is just an extension of the internet. A lot of people get to be anonymous and get to say things that they normally wouldn't say in real life. When you're Kim Kardashian or somebody who has a high profile name, you're automatically going to be in somebody's targets, regardless of whether you're nice or not. you're going to be in somebody's crosshairs because your name is out there, and it's easy. It's easy pickings, and I think that's what a lot of it is. Because I've never seen Kim Kardashian do anything that made me really want to say, you know what, I hate this woman. I mean, I don't hate her. I'm indifferent, if anything. But I do admire, she's done a lot. She has clothing stores. She has one of the highest grossing apps.
What does Kim Kardashian do that you feel represents such hard work?
She's constantly traveling and promoting and working. They have all kinds of different businesses that they do. When I watch the show, they talk about she has these apps. She has tons of businesses. She is constantly working. So here's the thing: if you haven't really paid attention or watched the show, where does all the hate come from?
Thank you, because like I said, I don't. Like I said, it's pure speculation on my part because I personally don't watch the show because I just simply don't care. But what I do find funny is so many people claim to hate them, yet somebody's watching the shows and somebody's buying the magazines and somebody's buying the apps that keep them in business. So just be honest about it. If you like keeping up with the Kardashians, just say that.
I'm saying it right now. I've watched it a few times. It's not one of my favorite shows. I don't have it, TiVoed, but yeah, I have watched it and I've giggled and especially, okay, I watched it when it first came out and they were very insipid then and they were kind of mean and their attitudes were ugly, but there has been an evolution of this family. And I'm sure everyone's going to make fun of me for saying all this. When I watch it now, there's been a lot of maturation that has happened. And this family, I've seen that they stick together through everything. And I can't help but admire that.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair enough. And my point is, I'm tired of all the hatred and the negativity. And I hate this and I hate that. And all these people and people calling other human beings trash and just saying the most ugly things about other human beings for what? It's just, I don't know, it bothers me. So here I am defending the Kardashians on some podcast because I have some weird humanitarian issues.
On some podcast. Nice.
Oh, I'm sorry. On the best podcast. Okay, you can cut that part out. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm playing with you. It's if that's the worst thing that anyone ever said about us, I'll take it.
Right? I have a problem with people in general just really being personally attacked by people who don't even know them. I don't know.
No, you're right, Kerri. And this is why, as much as I am very into politics and the political system, I finally had to just bail because I have never seen politics turn personal to the degree with which it has this time around. It's like, if you support, now look, I personally think Donald Trump is a buffoon, but he's running for president. This is America. If you want to vote for him, vote for him. I would never say to someone I know, you're a fucking moron, and I can't be your friend anymore, It's just gotten so personal. Like, I have a very good friend who we're on complete opposite ends of the political spectrum all the time. And yet we're still the best of friends because it's just politics. It doesn't matter, I shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but in our personal relationship, it just doesn't matter. Yet let the hate flow forth on the interwebs. That's an excellent segue into what the topic of our show was going to be, which obviously we wanted to focus on you and your background, but just social media in general and people's behavior. You have commented on a lot of my internet ramblings, which I very much appreciate. It always makes me feel good, like that some people out there are paying attention. A lot of what I write is intended to be silly, but I also try to write things that are socially relevant. And you're always right there with a good insight or a good feedback or comment or whatever. So I want to let you know I do appreciate that. And one of the things I talk about a lot is just social media behavior, and then you, A, as a female in general, and B, as a Playboy Playmate, who, you put yourself out there with your photos and yourself online. Some of the stuff that my female friends put up with from dudes on social media, I've seen some of the messages and the photos, and I'm like, my God, who are these degenerates? Like, I'm a fun-loving guy, and like I'm a red-blooded guy who enjoys women and likes women, but it never occurred to me to say or do some of the things that guys do. And how do you even cope with all that?
I usually don't respond. I used to really vaporize people. On my old page, this is my second Facebook page. You weren't on my first one. My first page, I had the limit of friends over 5,000 and all that, and I just deleted it and started fresh. I need to do an energetic cleanse, and there were more yucky people over on that one, but I still get them once in a while, and I don't respond anymore. But you get the dick pics and the rude people that, you try to be kind at first. I'm sorry, I'm married. And some men will say, who cares? Things like that. And first of all, I do. There was one man who was private messaging me, and he kept trying to flirt with me and ask me out, and just over and over. And I kept, politely, but telling him, no, I'm married, and this and that. And then he called me a worn out used to be on one of my public threads. And he goes, I thought you were cool, but now I know that you're not. And it turns out this man is married, and he's really lucky that I am not a vindictive person. I don't believe in being vengeful, because I could have absolutely sent all of those private messages to his wife. She was on Facebook, but you're asking me how I cope with it. I can just ignore most of them, but sometimes people say things that will really get to you. I've been threatened. Look, let me put it this way. I'm a tarot card reading, energy healer, Playboy Playmate in an interracial marriage whose political passion is LGBT rights. You can throw a rock out your window right now and hit someone with a reason to hate me. So I've had I've been threatened with lynching. I've been told I'd like to see you and your N-word swinging from a tree. I've been called a slut. I've been called fat. I've been called I look like a man. So the thing is no matter how much you expect it and how many times it happens, it still hurts. And these are all the reasons why I don't show my son's face on Facebook. I don't know if you ever noticed that. I talk about my son all the time. He has a little fan page because of the things that he says, but you will never see his face, unless he's a baby and you can't recognize him, because it's scary. People aren't just mean, they're frightening. And I've been threatened with physical violence quite a few times if you delete someone, or you get maybe to an argument with someone, or they don't like that you've aged or maybe put on a little weight. They think that you should look the same as you did 25 years ago.
How does your husband deal with that?
My husband, well, we've been together almost 7 years. I've been a Playmate 25. So he knew that was, who I was. I mean, he didn't know who I was when we first met, but by the time we started talking, on one of our first phone calls, I said, look, this is what I do. I'm a single mom. I sell my photos for a living. I sometimes talk on, do pay phone calls and talk to fans on the phone. And this is how I make my living. This is how I feed my son. And he's like, okay, do what you do. It doesn't bother him at all. He says, you know what? They think that they see you. They think that they know you, but they don't get any of it. What they see and what they get is such the tiniest part of who you are. And I get all the good stuff.
That is awesome. I mean, look, over the time I've known you, I see you post your pics. Like, I personally love it when I see people post pics of them with their significant other, like being happy. I never understood why some people hate that so much. And it's like, I'm sorry that you're like so miserable in your own life. I love seeing the pictures of you and your husband like happy together. I think it's cool.
Thank you. Yeah, no, people bitch about everything. Oh, get a room. Oh, no one cares. Oh, yeah, you guys love each other. Who cares? Well, you know what? Go fuck yourself.
Listen, if I could do that, I'd never leave the house, but
Go be miserable over there. Yeah, people just complain about everything. No, they do. There is no end to what people will complain about. There is no end. So, whatever.
I've never understood. I being a guy, I like to think I know how like guys think. So maybe I'm just wired differently. But the concept of the dick pic, like I often wonder, do these guys really think Kerri's going to look at that picture and go, "Oh my God, I know I'm married, but I've got to have that. Like, I've got to have that. Where do you live? I'm coming over right now."
That is exactly what I ask myself every time I get. I'm like, really? But I'll tell you one interesting one. A girl sent me. She's like, look what I just got recently, and it was a dick pic, but it was one that was abnormally small. And I said, you know what? Because this, to me, and I'm just speculating, but I think in this instance, it was completely different. I said, I think that this guy has a humiliation fetish and he wants you to humiliate him, And because I never received one like that. Usually it's like, look at my big, huge shaft. It's red and glistening, looks like a dog, But this, I really think this guy I said, don't say anything to this guy because I think he has a humiliation fetish and he wants you to humiliate him and cuss him out and tell him how small that is. And I wouldn't do that for free.
Like, I go to a lot of fan conventions and I've seen like just some of the fan behavior in person I've seen is so shitty, you know? Sometimes I'm just astonished. And I just want to there were guys, sometimes I want to pull them aside and I'll be like, dude, come here. Have you ever actually been this close to a female ever? Like in your life? Because like, dude, calm it down. Like, you're not 14 just seeing a boob for the very first time. Like, relax. Like, just be cool, Like, you and everybody else at the convention that shall remain nameless were all so friendly and so nice and just genuine. And I'm like, why would anyone be nasty to any of these girls? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think it's just a misogynistic thing. Or maybe I think sometimes the men just get nervous and they're trying to be clever and funny and it really comes out wrong and insulting. I think there are really very few who just want to come up and be insolent. They do exist, don't get me wrong, but I've been doing this for so long and I can't think of an incident where someone just came up and was blatantly mean to me. They're nervous. I'll give them that, and what a girl said to me one time, she said, she's a playmate and she didn't go to the show, and she said, ew, did a bunch of sweaty guys put their arms around you for pictures? And I was thinking to myself, I said, yeah, they did. But if you think about it, there's a guy here who is trembling because he's standing next to you for a photo. Maybe it's uncomfortable, but if you step back and look at that, that's a compliment. I'm honored that this guy is trembling by standing next to me and taking a picture. Why should I be such an ass? So.
Well, I will tell you that is a refreshing attitude because, going to conventions for 20 years, on the flip side of things, I have seen some convention guests where I wonder, why are you even here? Like, if you're annoyed that someone wants to take a picture with you, why are you doing a fan convention? Plus, you're getting paid. I mean, let's face it, like, it is an interaction, and but I have seen some really nasty behavior by guests too, and I don't get it. I'm like, At least fake it. Like if you're there because just let's say you just simply need the money. It's cool. This is America. Like make money. At least smile and fake it. you know?
I completely agree with you. And it's a social setting, and it's people who appreciate what you do, and you need to give them what they came there for, you know? And I think that I think it's worse when a guest is rude than when a fan is rude. The fans are, whatever. Maybe they don't like me. They were looking to see the other girl down there, and for whatever reason, they want to be an ass. Okay, whatever. But if you're there representing your own name, why would you be rude? And if someone is waiting in line to purchase a photo from you, why wouldn't you smile? Why wouldn't you shake a hand? Why wouldn't you say, "How are you? What's your name?" That baffles me too, because I too have witnessed that, and I just don't get it.
Yeah, well then you know what? Those are the one, word of mouth. And now like we've been talking about social media, that word spreads quickly. I've been at conventions where word spreads very quickly. Oh, such and such is a bitch. Don't even talk to her. Or that guy is really nasty. Like don't go to his table. So you're only hurting yourself, really.
Absolutely. And also, I mean, I myself have experienced that, where I have met someone that I had previously sort of idolized, and it is so disappointing. Honestly, I've met a couple of playmates that before I was a playmate, I knew who they were, and I was like, oh my God, she's a playmate. That's great. I can't wait to meet her. And then you meet her, and she's such a bitch. You're like, it's so sad. It really is.
I love the sound effects. I've had very few really negative experiences, I'm happy to say. But you're right. It is. There was one, and I don't want to get sued, so I won't say the name. But it was an athlete that I idolized, and I was maybe 16, and it just so happened it was a public place, and I just was starstruck, and I was like, oh my god, blah blah blah, and I rattled off all these things, like, and I'm like, oh my god, do you have a moment? Can I have your autograph? And the answer was, you can find me at a convention and pay for my autograph. I just I just didn't even know. I was like, wow. I'm thinking, wow. And not a minor leaguer, let me tell you. Like, it was a big time person. And I was like, and I'll even forgive people. Like, like you said at the beginning of the show, you're only human, and maybe when you're at a convention, a guest had a bad day, had a fight with their spouse that morning, just having a bad day, whatever it might be. I'm willing to forgive that. Like they're just people. But by this flip side, that might be like that fan's one and only chance to ever meet you in person. And that is going to be their impression of you forever. You know, like I said, just fake it, or even if he had said, look, kid, I'm really sorry. I'm busy. I'm in a rush. I got to be somewhere. I'm really sorry. Okay.
And he's an athlete, so he probably had a ton of money anyway.
Yeah, I would have been like, all right, I'm sorry. Well, it was cool to meet you. But to say something like that, I was just like, oh my God. I will tell everyone I know never to go to your table at a convention ever, dick. What's the dumbest thing someone ever said to you?
The dumbest thing that people ever say to me, and it has absolutely nothing to do with being a Playboy Playmate, but the one thing that is not funny to me, does your middle name start with a K too? Yeah, that one's not funny to me. Never has been. My least favorite, I think, that I used to get all the time at autograph signing is like the cool guys that they're too cool, and they walk up there and they go, yeah, put something good on there. That's what they say to when you're signing the autograph. Put something good on there. Like, really? I said to one guy, go, what, like a booger? He didn't think it was funny. One time, when I very first became a playmate, this was when Playboy would pay you. You didn't sell the photos. You'd be paid to go to a convention, like a car show, and you would sign photos for free, and give them out. And apparently, what's his name? John Stamos was there too, somewhere at this car show. I never saw anything, but this guy came. I had been signing hundreds and hundreds, like the line was around the convention, just people just waiting for my autograph because I'd just come out on the stands. And I'm glassy-eyed and completely exhausted. And the next guy comes up and I looked up at him and I said, "What's your name, please?" And he looks down at the table and he goes, "I don't think so." And I was like, "What?" And I looked down and apparently half of my stack of photos was John Stamos. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know he was there until I almost signed my name on his face. But that was pretty funny. But that guy's reaction was funny. I don't think so.
What do you think the biggest misconception about being a playmate is?
That we're promiscuous, and that we sleep with Hef. I think those are two of the biggest misconceptions. I'm an introvert, to be honest with you. I'm a loner and I'm an introvert. I've always been pretty sexually conservative, when I was younger. I've never even flirted with Hef. I've always been in long-term monogamous relationships, I did one time I used to work at a outpatient surgery center, and one of the OR techs was in a college course. And I think he was taking a human sexuality class, and he brought me there as extra credit. And so he brought me to the class, and as I walked in, I was only like 20 at the time. And as I walked in, some guy, like 35 or a 40-year-old, goes, "We got the hookers here," as I was walking in. And yeah. And so I walked up to the front of the class and I introduced myself and I said who I was and all that. And I forget how we went about it. And I said, "No, I'm not a prostitute." I said, for instance, I said, "This man in the back called me a hooker as I walked in." And he's like, "Oh, no, I'm sorry. I know you're not a hooker." And I said, "You know what? No, you don't." I said, "First of all, let me explain something to you. A hooker or a prostitute is someone who's had sex for money. I personally haven't done that." I said, "But you don't know that. You don't know if I am or I'm not. But you decided to call me that right when I walked into the room." "I know, I was just kidding. I was just being funny." I said, "But it really wasn't funny, anyway." But yeah, those are misconceptions.
Do you have any regrets about posing nude, and has it harmed your career in any way?
No, see, I'm not an actress. Never wanted to be one, so there's no kind of harming of a career that could happen. I don't have any regrets, but what I will say is that the internet definitely did change the game. When I was younger, people would say to me, "What are you going to say to your children when you have them?" And I said, "I'll be honest with them. I'll tell them Mom was a Playboy Playmate and the magazines are up there. When you get old enough, if you want to have a look, you can, whatever." Then the internet came around. And it's not so much of a, well, the magazine is over there on the shelf if you're ever curious. Now it's Mom has, tens of thousands of hits if you put her name in Google. So my son, who is now in 6th grade, I had to, about 2 years ago, in 4th grade, I had to sit him down and tell him, Mom is what's called a Playboy Playmate. There's a magazine called Playboy. I know you've seen the bunny head. And I'd explain to him the whole thing because I had to give him the power. Because he's always called me Kerri Kendall, even though that's legally not my last name. My last name is the same as his, but he's always referred to me as Kerri Kendall. And he knows that I used to model. And I just had this horrible movie that would play in my head about him being on the playground going, "My mom used to be a model," and little Johnny going, "No, she wasn't. Yes, she was. Her name was Kerri Kendall." And then little Johnny going home and Googling me and my son finding out that way. So I had to make the decision to give him the power. And that's what I told him. I go, "So you have this information now. You do with it what you will. You can keep that to yourself and not tell your friends my name or that I modeled or that I'm playing, but this is what it is." So the internet really changed a lot of, I always would be honest with my son anyway, with my child anyway, but I had to do it much quicker than I would have.
You listen, this is why, like, my daughter turns 11 in a couple of weeks, and this last year, rather, I begrudgingly agreed to get her a phone. I'm separated from my wife, and we talked about it. But being that I work in the IT industry, specifically in security, I've already explained to her anything you do on that phone is captured and recorded forever. Every text you send, every picture you take, everything you do is out there forever. So be sure before you hit send that whatever you're typing is exactly what you want to be there, because someone will find it and will hold it against you someday.
Yep, I've said the same things to my son. We have these talks about all of that. Yeah, it's
Good. I'm glad. Folks, listeners, listen to Kerri. Have that conversation with your kids.
have all of these conversations with your kids. Here, you can't think that you can, especially now with they have access to the internet, they have access to everything. And if you think that you're going to just cut them off from it at home and that's going to protect them, you're wrong. They're going to see things, the video games, whatever, at their friends' houses. So have it in your own house, have the discussions, have the open discussions. A lot of these things that they are exposed to too soon actually opens up dialogue for, I'd rather know about what he's exposed to than be that parent that says, you can never go on YouTube by yourself, and then have him go on YouTube by himself, see something that confuses or scares him, and be too afraid to come to me and ask about it or talk about it. You know what I mean? So you got to have all these discussions, social media, sex, things that we didn't discuss as soon with our parents, you have to discuss much sooner now. It's huge.
So soon? How about never? My mother was practically a Puritan. I'm adopted, but how my younger brother was born, I still don't know, because of my mother's attitude towards sex. And the sex talk with my dad consisted of one sentence: "Don't get any girls pregnant." And that was the end. That was the sex talk from my dad. I'm like, oh, okay. How would I do that to begin with? By the way, Dad. But
Yeah, I never had that conversation. My my mother's my mother's mother, my grandmother, after she had her kids, and she had four, my mother being the youngest. After she had my mom, she decided she wasn't going to have sex anymore. She would give my grandfather $2 a week so he could go see a hooker.
That's what you call marital compromise. I think that's beautiful, to be honest with you. I think that's great.
Oh yeah, and I actually thought that was kind of progressive for the time, but that always stuck out to me. That particular story. Yeah, one of the things that you said, and I want to touch on, so to speak, uh, when you're talking about somebody asking, well, what are you going to tell your kid? As though there's something shameful about what you did, like there's something embarrassing about it, and I find that kind of interesting and almost insulting. At least I would take it that way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, people can be very insulting about it. I've had guys say, when I was younger, when I first was published, guys say in front of me to my boyfriend, dude, how do you deal with that? I could never let my girlfriend do that. How do you do? It's like, hello, I'm right here. Hi. First of all, no one's letting anyone do anything. But no, it is insulting. It's people say some very interesting things. And it's right along the lines of, doesn't it bother you to know that, all these men are jacking off to your pictures? Well, yeah, if I sit here and think about it, it probably would bother me a little bit. I don't know. It depends on the visuals. Who knows?
But fortunately, you have a family and a life, so you don't necessarily have to think about that.
No, I don't think about it at all. I try not to think about things that would be bothersome. I think about, what I have told my son, and he's like, well, it's weird that guys buy pictures of you. And I said, you know what? I said, some of them are collectors. Playboy is a very iconic magazine. Some of them collect autographs and this and that. And I said, and also, Pop, I said, think about it. Some people are also very lonely too. Maybe they never got a wife. Maybe they never had a girlfriend. And to purchase a picture from me, who they've known from the magazine for years, and I write their name on it, maybe really makes their whole day and makes them feel a little less lonely. I try to give people a perspective where you can just humanize people, you know? We have such a habit of dehumanizing everyone. And you have to bring back the compassion.
Yeah, well, like we said before, negativity, it's just everywhere. Like, and I find myself guilty of it sometimes in some of my posts where you don't know, like for everything that I do post, there's 10 that I get all the way through it and then just hit delete because I'm like, why am I bitching about this? Like, why not? Like, not, you know? And I just zap it and post something silly instead.
Hey, we're all guilty of it. Let me tell you something. I have this fantasy of once a month, these guys that look like Secret Service coming and knocking on my door and then just pushing past me and yanking my computer out of the wall and saying, no, you can't have this for another week. You know, no, my PMS isn't that bad. No, you have no business being on social media when you have PMS, you know. And I wish that would happen, you know, just come and take it away from me because, yeah, I can be negative too. And I vaporize people when I've got PMS, man. Woo! But
Hey, Scott, is it just me, or did I think that story was going to go in a completely different direction?
No, that wasn't just you.
were you guys going the typical bullshit porn route with that? Wow, come on. I thought you were way more intelligent than that, Todd.
You know, I'd like to say we're better than that, but we're not.
We're not. Is that the cable guy? Every porn movie should be titled "Shit That Never Ever Happens to Me."
I'm not, you know, it's so funny. I'm just not a big fan of porn. Isn't that weird? I just, ugh.
No, not weird. You know, not. I don't think it's weird. It's okay. Fair. That's fine. That's just you. Like, I know a lot of people that are not. You know. And then there's some, like some people that seem to be way too into it. Like, I'm not a prude by any stretch, but there are times where I'm just like, dude, really? How do you know the name of every single porn star ever? Like, ever.
Yeah. I've been in 2 different relationships with 2 different porn addicts, and it's no fun, believe me. It is no fun. Because
Well, that's a whole nother episode.
that's another show. It's like, ugh, you'll never be enough.
Okay. On that note, I'm suspending. I'm I'm suspending my Pornhub account. I feel dirty now.
No, I don't judge people who watch porn at all. I think porn is very natural, but there are people out there that do have problems with it, and it does scare me the access that children have to it now, because I do think that if they are exposed to it too young, it does have a detrimental effect on their sexuality. And I tell my son that. I tell him, I say, you can watch anything on YouTube, you can watch anything on Netflix, because he says to me, well, what if I saw like girls in bikinis on YouTube? Is that bad? And I said, no, you're supposed to watch girls in bikinis on YouTube. Like that's normal. But if I ever find you on the internet trying to look things up like that, that's what the problem is. And I've actually told him, you know, about this will mess you up. This will ruin your sex life for when you're older. It will have, you know, adverse effects on your brain. So, I mean, it's a new world out there, you know, and there's only so much protecting you can do. So you got to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, as the father of a little girl, it's certainly not easy, you know, to have these conversations. But I especially in the business that I'm in, which I'm actually grateful for my line of work because my daughter's computer, my computer, her phone are locked down like Fort Knox. I mean, because I have a lot of tools and things that can shield that. But you're right. When she's not with me and her friends, hands their phone to her and say, "Here, look at this." There's nothing I can do about that.
Right. We can't protect them from everything. So we have to be prepared for when it comes to us. And we have to make it a safe place for them to feel like they can come and ask anything and talk about anything. Because if you do too much of the, no, you're not allowed this, you can't do that, and you have to never, they become afraid to, hey, Dad, I saw something that really bothered me. Can I talk to you about that? If you've been too harsh and strict on all of that and not just honest and, open with them, they're not going to come to you with things that they may have been exposed to that can have adverse effects on their psyche.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sometimes at odds with my ex because she is very conservative. Um, and and it's not like it's not like I leave, like I certainly don't have any, nude photos laying around or anything, but I do have a lot of friends who are models and cosplayers and such. So there might be a photo of someone, I haven't put it away, a signed photo from someone in a sexy costume or something or cosplay. And she'll ask me questions and I'll be like, no, Olivia, I appreciate this person's beauty and her form, and she was kind enough to sign a photo for me. This is a friend of mine and this is just what she does for fun. And my ex's biggest fear is that my daughter will grow up thinking that is what you're supposed to wear, and like, ooh, daddy, that's what daddy likes to look at. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm a man and I'm attracted to women, go figure. Isn't that weird? you know but
No, but you'll teach her how, by the way that you treat women, will teach her how she should be treated.
Well, and plus she's met a lot of these people already because I take her to conventions and stuff. So she knows that they're real people, they're nice people, they have feelings, they're not just an image. So she gets it.
Right. I'm trying to raise a very non-judgmental child, and that's tough. The other half of his family is very ultra conservative too. It's black. I mean, complete polar opposites. But he did say to me one time, "Have you ever been a stripper?" And I said, "No, I haven't, but I've known some strippers. I've had some friends that do, and I don't judge them, and neither should you." So you just have to try to not raise assholes. That's our job in life, is to not raise assholes.
Exactly. The world is full of them, so we don't need to add more.
The moral of the story is, don't raise assholes.
Okay, on that note, Scott, I think we're out of time. We've been at this a while.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to end. Don't raise assholes. That's a good place to end.
I appreciated being here. I hope I didn't embarrass you guys too much. Just go ahead and edit out anything, that's.
This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you being on. And if you like the Imaginarium, go ahead and rate us and leave a review on iTunes and all the other places you can find the podcast. And check out the other podcasts that we have at thesupernauts.com. And until next time, may all your journeys be filled with pure imagination.